Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our FabFems Friday. Today, we are focused on mechanical engineering. I'm excited to welcome some fabulous panelists today. My name is Trisha Berry. I am the director of the Women in Engineering program at UT Austin, your host for today. And we're excited today again to focus on mechanical engineering. We're continuing our FabFems Fridays through the rest of the month, so we have a couple more coming up. The way today will work is we're going to start with our facilitated panel. We have some pre-selected questions that we'll be asking, and then we'll be taking questions from the audience. So make sure that as we're going along, as you have questions, you put them there in that Q&A box. You can type them up there at the bottom and hit the little bubble, talk bubble button to submit, and we'll work through as many of your questions as we possibly can as we go through this webinar. So with that, I want to get us started, and I'm going to flip to this view here so you can see all of our fabulous panelists. And I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves and let you hear a little bit about who they are. They can share their hometown, they can share what they're doing these days, work-wise, school-wise, and maybe also share with us a hobby, something that you all do for fun. Can we start with you, Paula?
Okay, first, can everyone hear me? Okay, awesome. Um, Hello, everybody. I wish I could see all of your beautiful faces as well. So I'm imagining all these bright, shining faces there, and so that's who I'm going to be talking to, in addition to the people on our panel. My name is Paula Miles, and I am an alumna of UT Austin Mechanical Engineering way long time ago. So we won't even talk about dates, but it's been quite a while. I grew up on the Texas Gulf Coast in Texas City, Texas, so down between Galveston and Houston. I currently live in San Antonio, Texas, and I left Texas City to go to UT and then was recruited by a company to come to San Antonio after I graduated, and here I am. As a mechanical engineer, my initial career was in energy and gas and electric utilities, and I was a gas design system engineer. And people who have talked with me before, and Tricia has heard this before, when I say that engineers can do everything and anything, because this engineer has done a lot of all of those things. Um, Started out in design engineering, moved into operations. Then I got an opportunity to do work in the marketing, the sales and marketing sides of utilities. So call centers, customer services, those kinds of things, which was really different than what I had been trained to do, I thought. And then I was able to spend some time in human resources as a senior executive there. And then I got to go back to my love of not only design engineering but innovation in the utility space, and build a team of great people. And so we did a lot of cutting edge work there. I worked in one company for more than 30 years, but I had multiple jobs. And the thing that was consistent about it is, as an engineer, we are all trained to think in a certain way. And those ways of thinking apply to anything. And in fact, in some areas that you might not think would be related to engineering, it actually gives you a very distinct advantage. So as you are considering careers, or you thinking about doing stuff and those kinds of things, I encourage you to try all kinds of things. Learn to write. If you want to talk about a superpower, my superpower is writing. And so if you learn to write well, learn to communicate well, take some, when you get to go back to campus, take some tap dancing lessons, do all kinds of things, take that extra English course, because you never know when you're going to be in an environment where those things may come to bear. Just be prepared. So, the other thing Trisha asked is a fun thing that I do. I am sitting in my office, my home office, and I am looking out at a swimming pool. And as soon as we finish here, I'm going to be out there. All right. So that's who I am.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah, so my name is Lauren Waymeyer, and I'm also a UT Mechanical Engineering alum. I graduated 7 years ago, and I've been with the same company for those last 7 years. The company's called BASF, and you probably haven't heard of them, and that's okay. They make chemicals, so they do a lot of a big range of things similar to like Dow or DuPont. But my role through the company, even though I've been with the same company for a long time, similar to Paula, I've done um, a wide range of tasks, and there's really a lot of opportunities for engineers. Like Paula was talking about, you can do design engineering, different production related things, sales, marketing, leadership, safety. There's a whole lot of opportunities for engineers in the working world. So kind of find what those passions of yours are. It's okay if your passion is not heat transfer class. Um, you'll be able to kind of just follow those and take them wherever it happens to take you. Um, yeah, so my role right now, I'll say, I do, for the engineering team at the company, I manage continuous improvement, communications, and learning and development. So I have a few people reporting to me, and that's kind of our realm of responsibility there. For fun, I like to do a lot of, oh, I guess I didn't say I grew up in San Antonio and I live in Houston now. Um, I like to do a lot of camping and hiking and outdoors activities. I've been to, I think, 24 national parks. Um, so hoping to see if I can get a few more of them in this year. So that's me.
Hi everyone, my name is
Awesome.
Sarah
Thanks,
Jan.
Lauren.
I am a
Sarah
recent
Jan.
graduate from the mechanical engineering program at UT. That's crazy to say. I'm from Katy, Texas. That's my hometown, and I'm here right now with my family. But I am getting ready to move out of state for my job. I got a position in Nevada, and I will be moving within the next week too. Um, as for hobbies, since I've been home and since, it's better to stay inside, I've been helping my mom start a garden in our backyard, and some of our tomatoes just started budding some flowers. So it's been pretty fun. I think I'm learning to finally have a green thumb. So.
Everyone, my name is Melanie.
Awesome.
I
Thanks,
am
Sarah
going to
Jan.
be a senior
Melanie.
in Mechie at UT, so I'm still a current student. I am in the position of still not knowing what my plans are after graduation, so if you have questions about that, feel free to let me know. And for hobbies, I've been playing tennis because it's like a good distance activity and it's a good way to stay active. And I also wanted to mention that some of my interests outside of engineering are French and education.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, let's ask a question that seems to come up constantly in our FabFems Fridays. And this is for each of our panelists. So you can fight it out who gets to go first. Or we can go in the same order we just did if that makes it easier. So Paula, maybe you kick us off. Can you tell a little bit more about why mechanical engineering was what you chose? What drew you to mechanical engineering? Maybe talk a little bit more about what does that work in mechanical engineering look like? What do you do? And maybe you can give a little glimpse of what you do now as well.
Okay. When I was deciding what area to go into in engineering, I have to tell you that I didn't know. I knew some things about electrical engineering, chemical engineering, civil engineering, the wide range of majors that you all have now really weren't in existence when I was going to school and at the position or at the point where I was making determinations about it. But I will say this, for me, mechanical engineering made the most sense because in the moment I was making the decisions, it was the most tangible. So, you know, space and physics and those kinds of things. Physics really made sense for me, and it was one of my most interesting classes, except for the electricity and magnetism piece. That's electrical engineering is just a bunch of mathematical formulas and models. It doesn't make sense. I get how electrons move and all that and resistance and all of those things. I get that, but for me, that was just on paper. I can see things move from the mechanical point of view. Moments and those kinds of things, they made sense because you could see them in action. So for me, it was more about the tangible things that I could immediately see, feel, and experience that really pulled me into mechanical engineering. At that time, the money was elsewhere. Electrical engineering was where the money was. It didn't matter to me. If I couldn't see it, it didn't matter if they were going to pay me for it or not. And mechanical engineering is a really broad brush of things. You get a little bit of everything, so you really have an opportunity to explore different aspects of that technical major and the technical know-how that goes into it. So I think it's a really firm base to start from. And what I do now, Tricia mentioned that I actually retired 5 years ago now, Tricia. 5 years ago from the local utility here in San Antonio after 31 years there. And what I'm doing now is I have a consulting firm and I do executive coaching, leadership development coaching, and also some consulting. Still some on the technical side, but mainly around organizations and how people fit into organizations and interact with each other. But my client base, interestingly enough, are primarily technical organizations, STEM organizations. I have done some work with BASF actually. And so my connection is still in that technical world because I remain drawn to it and because I speak the language. So it moves. It's interesting how things develop over time and how you grow and change over time. And so the one thing I would say for all of you who are early in your decision making, or you've decided this is where you're coming, or maybe you're a high school senior making up your mind, your first job is not the last one that you will have. And so take the opportunity to explore and learn other things.
I think that's a great example as well, Paula, for all of you watching, that once an engineer, always an engineer, and you can take that engineering background and that problem solving and those connections and networks into all kinds of different spaces along your career path, whether it's in retirement or during the early parts of your career and all places in between. Lauren, let's hear from you. Why ME?
With some similar themes to Paula's story. In high school, I both enjoyed and was good at calculus and physics, and I understood that that was unusual. And so if I had that kind of intersection of interest and talents, that I should kind of run with it. I also was much more interested in the mechanics side of physics than the E&M, particularly the magnetism stuff. So it was really a process of elimination, I would say, once I got the list of engineering majors. And mechanical was one of the few that I didn't strike through. And I also really liked that it was broad because I didn't know specifically exactly what I wanted to do, and I wanted to kind of have options at the end of my 4 years. And I found that those options are still with me all the time, and there's really kind of a limitless number of paths that you can kind of weave together to create your career trajectory. So it's worked out for me.
Yeah, so similar to
Awesome.
what Ms.
Thanks,
Paula and
Lauren.
Lauren said,
Oh,
I
Jan.
really like calculus and physics. But also in junior high and high school, I really loved art. I really liked drawing, and I knew I wanted to be able to combine some creativity with like the technical side of things. And engineering just seemed like a really good fit. Mechanical engineering specifically, again, it's very broad. So because I didn't see like my future career from the other types of engineering, I thought mechanical was a good way to start. You do learn a little bit of everything. You go into like electrical, some chemistry, and then for the UTME degree plan, you're able to choose what you want to specialize in. So you can use that if you want to specialize in like computer science or programming or other like very specific disciplines. So yeah, it just seemed to make sense for me to choose mechanical engineering. For my electives, though, I chose to get a business minor. So again, it's sort of not what you'd expect an engineer to get. So if you don't know where you want to go into, but you know engineering's a passion, I think mechanical is a really good place to start. That way you can try different things out, and then you're able to, decide for yourself what you have the most passion for.
Really echoing what every person has said already. When I was in high school, I really enjoyed calculus. I thought it was super interesting and I wanted to apply it more. Even growing up, I was constantly doing hands-on experiments at home with water and like making a mess all the time because I loved getting my hands dirty. And so when I was deciding what major to pursue, I was pretty certain I wanted to do engineering because I thought the problem-solving aspect was super cool. And I picked mechanical because it is the most broad, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my career. And it seemed like it had a lot of varied job prospects. And then I got into mechanical engineering, and I think it's basically been what I expected. And so I would say like it is still very broad, and I think that's like the double-edged sword of Nike is that it's so broad that there's a lot of opportunity to explore, but at the same time it's so broad so you don't even know like where to start in narrowing down what you're interested in.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into some of these examples because you all kind of mentioned the broadness of it. We heard Sarah Jan mention that creativity side of things. So one of the questions that had come in before this panel was, would you say that it's creativity or the technical knowledge that is more important for mechanical engineering? And maybe do you have an example of where you've had to be creative or technical or maybe both in a project? And we're going to go in a reverse direction to mix it up a little bit. Melanie, do you want to start us off?
Engineering in college, it is pretty technical. So a lot of my experience with engineering has been like through class and taking tests and working on projects, and I think the creative side of it comes in, excuse me, in problem solving and in project work. So this past semester I was in a class called Machine Elements where we had to virtually design a car, build it in CAD software, and it was a very open-ended project, which required a lot of creativity because we had to decide what the car was going to look like and what parts we wanted to use to meet our design goals. And so we had to meld creativity with our technical knowledge to accomplish the goals that we wanted to achieve. So I would say it's definitely both, even in college, but for me it started out more technically focused, and as we get into more project work towards the end of the degree plan, creativity becomes especially important as well.
Yeah, so like Melanie said,
Oh, thank
for the
you.
most
Sarah
part when you're in
Jan.
school, it's very technically based. The farther you get, though, creativity will start playing more of a role. Right now, I'm in the last senior design class for mechanical engineering. So we were given a project from a sponsor. Um, and this time, when coming up with like designs and concepts, there was a lot of creativity involved, right? Because you're sort of designing it from your mind. But I'd say it's equally as technical because once you come up with a design, you have to prove it, right? So you prove it with like equations and the math behind it and everything. So I don't want to say creativity is not important because, it is important, but you have to understand like the technical and the fundamentals behind everything before being creative will be beneficial to you.
Lauren. Oops, we might have Lauren frozen. Let's go to Paula and we'll come back to Lauren.
Okay. What Melanie and Sarah Jen have said is right on point. Understanding, getting the fundamentals of the technical side down really well is important. So on the front end, that's where you're spending a lot of your time. And later on in the degree plan, you do have the opportunity to be more creative in the problem solving stages and that kind of thing. Interestingly enough, I think it was my intro to ME class, we had a project, and just to show you how dated this is, we built a waterbed, little waterbed, and so there was a bit of creativity that was part of that, in addition to the fundamentals, of weight and bearing and that kind of thing, and so it was interesting. But what I found, because I'm probably a fairly equal mix of the technical and the creative, what became really important for me is while I was taking my engineering courses, particularly in my sophomore and junior year, I had to balance that with taking something else that was non-technical, so that I could, let my creative brain also work. And so when I said take a tap dancing class, I meant it. I took a tap dancing class. I took some art classes and dancing classes and other things, writing, so that I could work both sides of my brain. And so when you're able later on in your curriculum to put those two things together, it came together well for me. That's what worked
As
for
far as
me.
technical versus creativity, I think my
Awesome,
experience at
thanks.
least, you really need to have
Lauren.
base technical knowledge so that you can tap into that in a creative way to kind of connect problem to solution. So really, really both of them are important. I can think about plenty of examples where I was working with a piece of equipment kind of from a maintenance perspective, and it wasn't a specific piece of equipment that I had learned a lot about in school, but I knew enough kind of just about general engineering principles that I could take this base knowledge that I had and evaluate, the problem that was in front of me and kind of do some troubleshooting to come up with a creative solution or kind of have some creative thinking to find what causes, failure in a piece of equipment. So I think it's really the intersection of both technical and creative skills where engineering is most of the time.
Awesome, thank you. Well, speaking of creativity, we have given our camp participants this summer an engineering design challenge that they could choose from. And one of the choices was a roller coaster design challenge. And so one of the questions that came in, I'm going to throw it to Melanie and Sarah Jan, but Paula and Lauren, feel free to jump in if you have additional things to share, if you were to be designing a roller coaster as a mechanical engineer, what might you need to think about, or what might that process look like to make sure that people are safe on a roller coaster? And I know you both aren't roller coaster design engineers necessarily, but you're engineers nonetheless. So what are your thoughts on that? How would you respond to that?
Okay, I'll start. I guess the first thing I would do is look into previous literature or work in regards to roller coasters that are made. It's always good to have a reference to look at. Usually they'll have equations set up so you don't have to do extra digging yourself. From there, you'd want to consider the design you're going for. Is the ride intended for adults or children, because that'll affect how intense the ride is. So I guess customer needs. I mean, cost is the thing. Yeah, I don't know, Melanie, help me out.
This is what y'all are seeing is this engineering mind at work. What might we need to do? That's a good question y'all posed for them.
I think one of the first things is looking at what are your goals, and
then
addressing your goals through design. And so if your goal is to make a fun ride for 5-year-olds, that's going to look very different than to make a thrill roller coaster that teenagers and young adults want to be scared on. And so I think once you figure out those design goals, then you can use more technical aspects to figure out what material you need to accomplish those goals, and what design will allow you to accomplish those goals. So I think it's a method of going from the abstract of what do I want to achieve to how am I going to achieve it with specific material based off of cost and effectiveness and location as well. If this roller coaster is going to be outside, it has to be able to withstand weather conditions, and if it's going to be inside, it would have to be able to be confined by the space it has. So it's all about evaluating what constraints you have and then applying those constraints to your design decisions. And then at the end, you would obviously test the roller coaster for safety and make sure that your design decisions are being accomplished, as well as you have a fun experience without getting injured. So I think that's how I would approach the problem.
Pretty good. I think I'd ride y'all's roller coasters at the end of the day. Awesome. Well, thank you. We've really been pressing upon our campers that engineering design process, and you really do have to understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and then you work your way through it, and trial and error and testing things out and thinking about all of the things that come into play, like you talked about, are important. So thank you. All right, Lauren and Paula. We get a lot of questions as well from our participants about imposter syndrome, or that sense that, do I really belong here? Someone's going to find out that I don't know absolutely everything there possibly is to know about mechanical engineering and this problem. Have you ever felt like that in your college or career? And if so, what's really helped to push you through or to keep you going on? How do you resolve that?
I heard the phrase imposter syndrome. I was a senior.
Lauren, you should go first.
It was with me so much because I heard about it. I was like, this is exactly what I feel sometimes. So it happens, and I think the way I've kind of learned, I guess, to respond to this emotion is, first of all, just saying okay, that's happening and that's fine. But instead of responding to that anxiety, I'll say, with fear, really reframing it. Instead of saying, I don't belong here, I'm not good enough, think of it instead as, I'm challenging myself and I'm making myself better by experiencing this challenge and this discomfort that comes with challenge. Because it's when you have that feeling of oh, I'm in over my head, that you're really advancing and getting better because of it. It's the moments where you're comfortable that you really should be worried instead. So I would say just be comfortable with the discomfort, and just understand that your career, your learning, your life experiences are kind of all part of a unique journey to yourself, and this really uncomfortable feeling that kind of comes with imposter syndrome is how you advance through that and continue to kind of progress through your career. So embrace it, part of it.
For me, the short answer is yes. I've had that feeling before many times, and my my normal persona is kind of quiet, and I listen a lot, process internally. So I'm not always the first person to speak up in a group of people or to answer questions or even to ask questions. But I listen. And so for me, the imposter syndrome coming out of that has been a journey. Like Lauren said, it's an uncomfortable feeling, but you find a way to work through it by thinking, okay, maybe I don't know everything, but for me, I would listen, and then I would begin to ask questions so I can get an assessment of, okay, what is the overall goal here for a particular project or a particular strategy, and find something in it that I did feel comfortable with, and then begin to work out from there. And so every time that I felt like I didn't belong on a particular project, I would find something that I could connect to. And then from there, I would start learning, okay, are there, do, don't I know a little bit more? I always know one thing, but what else do I know? And what other things can I learn? And because we're engineers, we have a process for learning things and solving problems. It became easier over time. So I still may walk into a room where I don't know people and I don't know exactly what's going on. Um, but I'll be still and I'll listen and I'll figure, okay, I know that pretty good. I'm just going to start there and work my way out from there.
Awesome. I'm going to ask our recent grad and current student a similar question, because oftentimes it looks like those ahead of us just had it so easy and they're just leading their perfect, no imposter syndrome, fully confident lives with no obstacles in their way whatsoever. Melanie's already shaking her head. So my question to Melanie and Sarah Jan, have you had to overcome any obstacles along the way in your engineering college path? And what helped you get through? What have you done? Have they been ongoing? How do you resolve all of that?
Is in discovering that I'm passionate about engineering education, which is not as much of a technical field within engineering, but it is still a completely valid career goal, and it is an opportunity that I'm incredibly passionate about. And so the challenge I've faced is staying strong in my passion for it, despite it not being a typical path that people go down, and not being able to use necessarily all the typical resources in order to pursue that path. Like, for example, I can't really go to career fair and find a lot of opportunities within engineering education. And so I've had to figure out ways in which I can educate myself more about the field and figure out what the opportunities are through my own path. So I think navigating an atypical career path has been stressful but also enlightening, and it's been a challenge for me to accept the fact that just because I'm not interested in typical mechy career fields, it doesn't make me any less of a mechanical engineer. It just makes me different. And so I think that's the biggest struggle I faced.
Oh, we froze her. Awesome.
So for me, I think one of the challenges I face is just having confidence in myself and my abilities as an engineer. I remember my sophomore year.
Oh, we got Sarah Jan frozen too. Oh, technology. See if she pops in for a second. If not, we're going to come back to her. Okay, we're going to come back to Sarah Jan with that question. So we have a ton of questions that y'all are throwing in the Q&A box. So that is awesome. Our fabulous WEP crew member, Sammy, is going to help us facilitate that and throw some questions to our panelists. So, Sammy, you are up
Hello. Okay, so one of the
next
first
to throw
questions
some
I'm going
questions
to
our way.
ask is about while you were doing your undergrad, what were some of the different things that you did to explore the different fields within mechanical? Maybe about some projects that you've done, and then also if you can maybe hit on the different tracks within ME, and I think I'll go to Malini for this one, please.
College, I thought I was interested in biomechanics within mechanical engineering, but I didn't really know for sure, and I didn't really do much to explore that passion. I just started joining various organizations my freshman year and trying to get involved in as many ways as I could. And so through my time in college, I've joined and left lots of different student organizations to figure out what things work for me and what things I haven't enjoyed. And I think that process has been incredibly informative to figuring out what my passions are. And then once I kind of realized that I was interested in education, I also started taking educational psychology classes at UT to supplement my Mechie degree, because at UT we can take career gateway electives, and I was able to take them for educational psychology. And so I think for me it was a combination of classes and exploring through organizations and outreach opportunities, and whenever an opportunity came my way, I tried to be excited about it and to put my whole effort into it, so I was able to fully assess with an open mind whether I would actually enjoy doing it or not. And I think that's how I kind of figured out what my passions are.
Great, thank you. The next question I'm going to ask is, what tips do you have for recruiting, networking, and interviews? And how do you learn the material asked in interviews? And if Lauren could answer this one for me, please.
Yeah, so I've done some recruiting over the last few years, so hopefully my answer can help you out. I would say the first piece of advice is to attend like the info sessions that different employers have ahead of time, so that when you meet them in a career fair, you aren't saying like, hi, nice to meet you, who are you, what do you do, but you can really kind of shape your introduction, shape your messaging, knowing who this company is and knowing who they're looking for. So attend those sessions, talk to employers at the career fair. There's a fine line, I would say, between getting to know recruiters and like asking them questions, and then just like obviously coming up with a question that you don't care about just so you can talk to them. So try and think of like meaningful questions, and think about, what would my life look like if I was with this company. And I think it's important, just when going through the recruiting process, to help take some pressure off yourself. Realize that it's not just about them interviewing you, but you're interviewing them too. So make sure that you're, figuring out who they are, so that you can evaluate if it's a good fit for you.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, I'm also going to ask this to Sarah Jan with her new job opportunity, if she could talk about her interviewing process and if she has any tips, please.
Yeah, so I've had a couple of interviews before the recent one that I actually got the job offer for, it is okay to mess up an interview, especially your first time. Speaking is so difficult, representing yourself in a way that makes you look good, but you don't like just sell yourself too much, but like you don't put yourself down. It's hard. You have to really learn a lot about yourself and to be confident in your skills and your knowledge and everything. So my first interview, like my first big job interview, I had to give a presentation and I totally choked. Like my voice was shaking the whole time and it was a mess. But I think because of that experience, it made me, take a step back and like want to pay attention to how I speak. It's really easy to overlook it in engineering because of how technical it is. Like, oh, I don't need to know how to speak well, but it really is important to know how to communicate as an engineer. So my recent job interview, I think having it online helped because it kind of took the pressure away from having an in-person job interview. But there's still etiquette you need to know for that. Still, eye contact is a big thing. Knowing how to pause and allow the other person time to speak is important too. So I think advice for this is talk to like people you're comfortable with about what you do. Talking to my parents about my project that I'm currently working on has helped with presentations I've had to give. So just small things or just small ways where you can practice talking more really helps, even if you don't realize it.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm going to ask 2 questions in one for the next one. So one question was, what's the ratio between men and women in the degree and in classes? And I see Monty has said currently it's between 25% to 30% for women, but I want to ask you, Paula, how it was whenever you were doing your undergrad. And then I also would like you to answer, what is a waterbed, from a particular question from earlier.
So when I was in my undergrad, that's a good question. I would say less than 10% women. It was probably more in that 5% range. There were many classes that I had that I was the only woman, many of them. And so I'm just ecstatic about when you guys are talking about, 20-30%, that's like, oh, wow. That means that you have at least 1 or 2 other women in every class that you're in. That was not my experience at all. So kudos to everything that UT is doing to right that ship. And what is a waterbed? I knew I was dating myself. So a waterbed is essentially a bed, but the mattress is filled with water. And so you have some different, there's some different design aspects around the frame to support that water and, and the movements and, figuring out what the body weights are going to be. And it was interesting. It was interesting. Only waterbed I ever sat on
Great,
was the one that we helped to design.
The next question is, what kind of research opportunities are available and how can you come into contact with these ones, specifically for ME? And I'll ask this to Molly.
Yeah, sure. So my freshman year, I was super interested in getting involved with research. And I had had some research experience in high school. And so I was not able to do a lot of the programs that UT offers. So I guess we'll talk about that first. UT and UTWEP and EOE offer specific research programs that you can get involved with if you don't have research experience. And at UT, the ME department also offers research opportunities for first years. So I would say the first option is to explore the existing research programs that exist at UT or whatever university you're interested in. And then for me, since I had some research experience, I wasn't able to do that, so I explored different research opportunities through the UT website called Eureka, which they post all the professors and what research projects they have currently going on. And I just individually reached out to different professors via email and asked to set up times to meet with them. And eventually I got involved with one research professor who's doing engineering education research, which also is what like built my passion in that. But I would just say, like, professors are very open and want undergraduate students to get involved with research. So all you have to do is reach out to them and be persistent, and once they see your persistence and your interest in it, they'll be able to hopefully find an opportunity for you. And it's a great way to dip your toes into the water and figure out if you're interested in research from a grad school perspective and just in general. So yeah, that's how I got involved with research.
Thanks, Melanie. The last question I have that will go to Paula first is, I'm going to combine, is it hard to get a job in mechanical engineering due to it being a broad field? And then if you could also give some examples of ME careers.
The short answer is that no, it's not hard to get a job with an ME degree. No more difficult than it is in any other engineering career field. You know, it is broad, but at the base of it, you do have, and I've said this before, you do have that process for thinking and for problem solving. And that is what people are hiring for. And that's what they look at engineers to come to the table with. And so whatever you decide, career direction that you want to pursue, those problem solving skills are going to come to bear. So then it becomes, how do you demonstrate that, and how do you package it when you are looking for jobs and interviewing for jobs? Well, you've heard it here loud and clear from Melanie and from Sarah Jan. You find out what is it that you enjoy. You have a broad range of minors and concentration areas in mechanical engineering, and you can explore those. Find out the ones that really resonate with you, and then begin to look out in the broader world. What kinds of jobs could I do or are available that address or involve those things that I'm interested in? So going into mechanical engineering, I still say is the best academic decision that I ever made, because you do have the basic skills that any career field is going to need. So that's what that's
Cool, thank you,
I would
Paula.
say about
And then
that.
finally, I'll change it up
Nope,
a
it's
bit,
not
and
hard.
I'll ask it to Sarah Jan if you could just talk about different aspects of mechanical engineering that you've touched on previously, and then also just how that prepared you for your career that you're about to start.
Yeah, so my job is in maintenance management for Amazon, so it's not like a super technical engineering position, but it has a lot of components that I learned from mechanical engineering. So like we've talked about before, definitely problem solving, learning how to adapt to a situation quickly and efficiently. Really, mechanical engineering, aside from all the technical classes I took, the biggest thing that, or the most important thing that I really took away from it is, you know, just learning how, like, problem solving, really. You use that in a lot of project-based classes like I am right now, and I know I will use it for my job in the future. So I think it's okay if you're not excited about every single like heat transfer or fluids class you take, but to look for the skills that you can take away from those classes that you can apply to everything else.
Sarah Jan, I'm going to come back to you because we missed your question on obstacles that you maybe had experienced through school and how you maybe
Yeah, I
pushed
don't know
through
where I was
those
cut off,
and
but
pressed on to
my
get to
sophomore year was really
graduation.
challenging, and I got to a point where I was questioning if I was in the right major. So like the question asked previously, the imposter syndrome part, and I think part of me wanted to transfer out because I felt like I was failing my classes, so how could I become an engineer in the future? And in that time, one of my professors in one of my classes probably gave me one of the best advices I've heard. And he said that when he was in college, he sort of experienced the same thing. Like he didn't know if he belonged there, but he just said to stick through it unless you know 100% sure that you want a career in a different field. Because graduating as a mechanical engineer says so much about you, and it will give you skills that you can apply literally anywhere. As a mechanical engineer, I don't need to have an engineering job. Right now, I'm doing more management-based positions. So I know that the skills I learned as an engineer are going to get me farther in so many other careers other than just engineering. So having that advice really just helped me push through. It helped me learn that it was okay to like fail a class as long as I recognized where I was weak and I focused on my weaknesses. And I think because of that, I was able to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's finish this up and we'll start with you on this final question, Sarah Jan, as you're heading out into this exciting new world of full-time work. What excites you the most about your future work with mechanical engineering?
I'm really excited to gain experience in different fields, as well as, since I don't have like classwork and homework anymore, to start pursuing industrial design and product design, which I really have a passion for. I hope that I'll be able to gain a lot of skills as a leader and more organization for my future positions. But ultimately, my goal is to end up back in like design engineering or industrial design. So I think really having this time just to focus on what I want and to really use the skills I gained at UT in the real world is what I'm most excited about.
Awesome. Paula, what about you? What are you most excited about the future of mechanical engineering?
Wow. Um, I'm excited for all of you young women out there, and for you, Melanie, and for you, Sarah Jen. You guys are embarking on the adventure of a lifetime, and there are so many things that you're going to encounter, people you're going to get to know, projects that you'll be part of. Many of them, most of them will be successful. You're going to fail some things miserably, and you're going to pick yourself up, and you're going to be better for it. This is a great time. The best thing about what I do right now is I get to work with people just like you and help them, support them as they move through these various parts of their career life. And so um, I'm excited for you guys, and I know you're going to do well.
Awesome. Malini, as a student who still has a little bit of school time left to go, what are you most excited
I
about
am
where you're
definitely
headed?
excited to graduate with an engineering degree. I think coming into college, I would have never expected to truly end up here. Like, it's something I wanted, but I couldn't envision for myself. And so I'm excited to see that happen, like to see all my hard work for the past 4 years culminate into a degree to my name, and to see my friends go through that process as well. I think we started together and we're going to finish together, and I think that's really powerful, and I'm excited for that to happen and in 2021.
Yay! Awesome. Well, Lauren had to step away, so we are missing her final words, but we definitely appreciated her contributions as well, and I know she wishes all of you watching the best. So we're going to wrap up with just a few reminders. We want to remind you about our FabFems.org website. This is led by the National Girls Collaborative Project. It's an online STEM role model database. So if you want to find more mechanical engineers to go read about or connect with and learn about, you can go in here and search on all kinds of different features and keywords. So go check that out for sure to continue your exploration. As a reminder as well, we're putting all of these FabFem Fridays on YouTube and adding new videos constantly, responding to frequently asked questions that we have received from you in these chats, as well as in other ways. So please be sure to check that out frequently. We're adding those videos constantly to keep answering your questions. And then last but not least, we have just 2 more FabFems Fridays that are scheduled. Next week, we'll be connecting with faculty and alums and students within our petroleum and geosystems and hydrogeology engineering programs. And then we'll finish up on Friday, July 31st with some corporate representatives, engineers from Shell and Applied Materials and Samsung. So we look forward to seeing you at those next future FabFems Fridays. And until next Friday, thank you. Enjoy your fabulous week. Thank you to our amazing panelists. It was great hearing from you. They shared such great advice. We'll see you next Friday.